To configure a simple report in DataLink, you will have to go to the manual, and as usual, you can follow the step-by-step solution in this manual, or you can go to the end of the manual. Let me go to the last page, where you have an executive overview that shows you the location of the completed solution. If you want to follow the manual, you have here the objectives that you will learn during this lab, and you will also have a step-by-step solution to this lab. Let me go ahead and show you where you can find the solution in the virtual machine. If you go to the C drive, Labs folder, Clients tool, create a simple RT report solution, you can open the completed report where you can see what we are going to build today. So this is the completed report with all the data already filled in. What we are going to do is work with a template that is found in the folder right next to it, Workspace, Activity Report Template. And here what we have is a template of a daily report that we are going to use the DataLink plugin to populate with data from the Pi server. This is a template that collects data every day at the same time, 7 a.m. You can see here the time at which data is collected, and it's very useful because everybody will be able to see the same report with the same numbers, real-time data coming from the Pi server. We have here on the A column on the left a number of tags for which we are going to collect this data, and what we want to collect is some attributes for the tags. We want the description, which is very useful to have as part of the tag. When you build tags, a useful description that will help users identify what these tags are referring to. We are going to collect units and then the current values of each one of those tags. So what we want to do is go to the Pi menu and click on Tag Attributes. That will open our Tag Attributes window, and here we can select the Pi server from which we are going to retrieve this data. We can enter here the tag names, and it is recommended to use other cell references as tag names. I can enter one cell as a reference. I can choose the attribute that I want to retrieve from the Pi server, and in this case the attribute is going to be the descriptor, and the output is going to be my B7 cell, and I can go ahead and apply the formula, and I can see that the description was retrieved from the Pi server. As an alternative, if you do not want to use the tag attributes window, you can always type the formula that you see here in the formula tab, and that will also retrieve the data for you. You can do this one tag at a time for the rest of the tags, or you can do a complete array at once. So for instance, if I want to now select tag names active 1 all the way down to sinusoid and retrieve the descriptor attribute, I can say that the output cell is going to be now cells B7 through 11, and apply my formula, and I can see that all descriptions are retrieved from the Pi server at once. In a similar way, I'm going to use the same array of tag names A7 through A11 to now get the engineering units, which I can find right here, and the output now is going to be my cells C7 through C11. I can go ahead and apply my formula, and I can see that the units were retrieved for those tags that had units associated with them. When it comes to the values, I like to retrieve the current values for these tags, and what I need to do now is select the current values function from the menu. In a similar way, I'm going to select the Pi server, which is optional. If I do not select a Pi server, Pi DataLink will retrieve data from the default Pi server. The tag names, I can select my array of tag names from cells A7 through A11, and I'm going to output those numbers to cells D7 through D11. And what I want to do is select time at left, and what that will do is it will populate the cells D7 through D11 with timestamps, and then cells E7 through E11 with the actual values. So it's interesting because I'm selecting the time stamp to be at the left side of the value, so that means that the column that I select will have the timestamps, and the one right next to it to the right will have the actual values for the tags. I click apply, and I can see that all the values were retrieved. Looking at the timestamp, I can see that these are the current values of those tags in the Pi server. But now what I'd like to do is retrieve some archive values at the specified time this morning. That's at 7 a.m. That's when I want to have the report. And there are a number of different ways in which I can retrieve those values depending on how I will compute that time. I can select an interpolated retrieval, previous, or next. So let's go ahead and select the archive value function, which opens our window here on the right, the archive value dialog window. We have our Pi server. The tag names, we are going to select the same tag names. Now they are displayed on cells A19 through A23, and the timestamp, the time at which I want to retrieve these values, these archived values from the Pi server, will be 7 a.m. this morning when I want to run the report. And this is the retrieval mode that we are referring to in each one of these cells. The default mode is auto. What we want to do first is retrieve those values in a interpolated mode, and the output cell is going to be cells B19 through B23 with the time at left, which is going to, when we hit apply, is going to apply our timestamps on column B and the actual values on column C, cells C19 through C23. I can do the same for the same tags now, A19 through A23, the tags on the left. The timestamp will remain the same, but the retrieval mode now will be previous, and the output cell will now be cells D19 through D23 with a timestamp at the left. I click apply, and I see how all the timestamps and the values are populated. And at last, for my retrieval mode of next, I keep the same tag names, the same timestamp. I select next for retrieval mode, and for the output cells I select cells F19 through F23. I click apply, and I have retrieved all those values. There is one last column that we would like to populate, and that is the exact time value column. And what I'm going to do is keep the same tag names, timestamp, and select exact time. And for the output cells, I'm going to select H19 through H23, and I'm going to say no timestamp, click apply, and we see that we have no events found. because there were no values for any of these tags that were saved in the Pi server at that exact time. In order to understand, or if you want to refresh what is the difference between each one of these retrieval modes, you can go to the help section from Pi DataLink, go to Pi functions, archive value, and in here you have a small section on the retrieval mode that explains the difference of each one of those retrieval modes. Auto is the default, and what auto does is it interpolates the value from the Pi server. So when I retrieve a value from the Pi server at a specific time, if there is no value at that exact time, the Pi server will take the previous and the next value and interpolate in a linear fashion between the two. You can see that some of the other modes that we tried was previous, which retrieves the value matching the preceding value in Pi. You have one for next, which will retrieve the next value. We see here exact time, which retrieves only a value that exactly matches the timestamp, and if there is no value at that exact timestamp, then the Pi server will display an no events found warning, and that's why we have this no events found display here, because there were no Pi values at that exact time of today at 7 a.m. So very useful report. We can change this Excel time here to, let's say, if we wanted a report from yesterday at 7 a.m., all we have to do is subtract 24 hours. So instead of doing it today plus 7 hours, we can do it today minus 17 hours, and we can see that all of the values are updated to correspond to the new timestamp in Excel.